Welcome to Mind Mechanics Lab, where we decode the most fascinating stories from history, science, and the world around us. Today's discovery will change how you see things. Let's dive in. Imagine a global superpower, an entity so vast and dominant that its influence stretches across continents, its military unmatched, its culture pervasive. Now imagine it simply falling apart, not in a single cataclysmic event, but a slow, agonizing unraveling that culminates in what seems like an almost unremarkable moment. That's the story of the Western Roman Empire. On September 4th, 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, a young man named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer. This wasn't a sudden bankruptcy or a hostile takeover, but the quiet, ignominious end of an empire that had defined the world for centuries. Historians have since wrestled with this monumental collapse, with over 210 different theories trying to explain how a civilization so powerful could simply cease to be. It's a question that echoes through time, posing a chilling warning. If Rome could fall, can any dominant entity, any superpower, truly be immune? Before its fall, Rome wasn't just a powerful state. It was arguably the world's first true superpower, long before the term was coined for the US or Soviet Union. What made Rome a superpower? It mastered the 7 dimensions of state power: vast geography, a sizable population, a superordinate economic capacity, ample indigenous resources, an unparalleled military, sophisticated diplomacy, and a strong national identity. Its influence was global, projecting power through combined economic, military, technological, political, and cultural might. No significant action could be taken by the global community without first considering Rome's position. This wasn't just a regional power, it was a continental-sized empire, holding sway over immense territories, dictating the terms of trade, culture, and governance across vast swathes of Europe, Africa, and Asia. From humble beginnings, Rome built an empire through military conquest, engineering marvels, and administrative genius, creating a system that seemed destined to last forever. Its vision was grand, its execution formidable, and its reach undeniable. Even for a superpower like Rome, the warning signs were there, though often dismissed or misunderstood. Many historians point to 376 AD as a pivotal year. This was when an unmanageable influx of Goths and other barbarians poured into the Balkan provinces. This wasn't just a minor border skirmish, it was a massive demographic shift that overwhelmed Rome's capacity to integrate or repel. The situation of the Western Empire generally worsened from this point, despite temporary recoveries. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD saw a devastating Roman defeat, a shocking blow to its military prestige. The death of Emperor Theodosius I in 395 AD marked the last time the entire Roman Empire was politically unified, essentially formalizing the split between East and West. Then, in 406 AD, Germanic tribes crossed the Rhine, a symbolic breach of a critical frontier. These weren't isolated incidents. They were escalating red flags, screaming that the empire's foundations were cracking under pressure. While external threats loomed large, a truly fatal decision, or rather, a series of systemic internal failures, crippled Rome from within. The research highlights internal decline, civil wars, and the disintegration of political, economic, and military institutions. Consider the execution of Stilicho in 408 AD. Stilicho was a brilliant general, arguably the last effective Roman commander who could unite disparate forces against the barbarian threats. Yet, due to court intrigue, political paranoia, and xenophobia, he was of Vandal descent. He was condemned and executed. This wasn't just a political assassination, it was a self-inflicted wound, a fatal decision driven by internal power struggles and a deep mistrust that prioritized short-term political maneuvering over the empire's long-term survival. Removing such a critical leader at a time of existential threat left the Western Empire critically vulnerable, paving the way for the catastrophes that followed. This internal fracture, born of political blindness, proved more devastating than any external enemy. The execution of Stilicho in 408 AD wasn't the end, but it initiated a catastrophic cascade. Just 2 years later, in 410 AD, the Visigoths under Alaric sacked Rome itself. This was an unimaginable humiliation for the Eternal City, shattering the psychological bedrock of the empire. Though the city recovered, the psychological damage and loss of prestige were immense. The ensuing decades saw a further unraveling. The death of Constantius III in 421 AD, a capable co-emperor, removed another potential leader. Then came the assassination of Aetius in 454 AD, another formidable general who had famously defeated Attila the Hun. This mirrored Stilicho's fate. Again, internal jealousies removed the very men capable of defending the empire. Less than a year later, in 455 AD, Rome was sacked a second time, this time by the Vandals. Each internal misstep, each political purge, eroded the empire's ability to resist, accelerating its inevitable demise. The death of Majorian in 461 AD marked the end of the last true opportunity for recovery, sealing Rome's fate. So what cognitive bias drove this blindness to impending doom? The research suggests a decline in civic virtue and Juvenal's early 2nd century criticism of the people's obsession with bread and circuses. This points to a pervasive collective myopia and a severe status quo bias. The Roman elite and populace, accustomed to centuries of dominance, seemed unable or unwilling to acknowledge fundamental shifts. They focused on short-term gratification, lavish games, and free food, while the foundations of their power crumbled. Leaders engaged in crippling internal power struggles, unable to unite against common threats. There was a failure to adapt, to innovate, or to genuinely address systemic issues like economic instability or military overstretch. The sparse economic records from the 4th and 5th centuries also suggest a lack of critical self-assessment and oversight, perhaps an optimism bias, that everything would eventually work itself out, ignoring the data screaming otherwise. This deep-seated resistance to change, fueled by past glory and internal division, ultimately blinded them to their own destruction. The fall of the Western Roman Empire didn't just mean a change in leadership. It marked a seismic shift in global history, traditionally seen as the end of the ancient era and the beginning of the Middle Ages. For the millions living within its borders, it meant a fragmentation of central authority, a breakdown of infrastructure, and a significant decline in trade and urban life. The sophisticated Roman legal and administrative systems largely disappeared, replaced by localized, often less stable, Germanic kingdoms. Money became scarce, and large-scale projects ceased, while the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, continued for another 1,000 years. The West experienced a profound transformation. Roman cultural traditions didn't vanish entirely. They blended with new influences, but the unity and grandeur were gone. It was a stark lesson in how even the most dominant structures can fragment, leaving behind a vastly different landscape for those who live through the aftermath. The story of Rome's collapse isn't just ancient history. It's a powerful business lesson for any organization, any leader, any superpower today. The core takeaway is this: adapt or perish. Rome's downfall wasn't a single event, but a cumulative failure to adapt to changing external realities, and critically, to address internal rot. The internal factors, civil wars, political infighting, economic decay, and a decline in civic responsibility were just as, if not more, damaging than barbarian invasions. For your business, this means constantly monitoring not just your market, but your internal health. Are you listening to warning signs, even if they're inconvenient? Are you allowing internal politics to derail critical decisions? Is there a pervasive bread and circuses mentality that distracts from long-term strategy? Don't let complacency, internal divisions, or a stubborn adherence to the status quo blind you. Continuously question assumptions, foster unity, and be ruthless in addressing internal weaknesses. Because even the mightiest can fall if they fail to evolve. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. New discoveries every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.